Hi, my name's Hannah. I am the founder of Birth Prep Yoga, which is a course that prepares and empowers women for birth. But today is all about postpartum. So when your baby is here, and I have a special guest today. She's a pelvic floor physio. Her name is Corinne Wade. She's been a pelvic floor physio for 30 years. She has a clinic and she treats all kinds of men, women, prenatal, postpartum, children, teenagers, you name it. And we are so lucky to have her today to answer your questions and go through topics about postpartum, how to have great sex in your postpartum life as a woman. So let me just spotlight her and one moment, and spotlight, and I'm going to remove mine. There's Corinne, and I'm going to mute myself, and here we go.
Perfect. So hello, everyone, whether you're attending in person or from somewhere else at another time. I think this content is so important. So like Hannah said, my name is Corinne Wade. I own Care Physiotherapy in Kelowna, BC. And I feel old saying this, but yeah, I've been doing pelvic floor physio work for 30 years. And so now I'm in menopause. So definitely today we're going to talk about pelvic floor health, like through the lifespan, right? So when I started doing pelvic floor physiotherapy here in Kelowna, like nobody was doing it. And it's great now with social media and the internet, like women's health and pelvic floor health is definitely like having its moment, right? In social media. So I think it's good. Women are speaking out. We're finally, I think, saying, you know what, we deserve better. We deserve better care throughout the lifespan. And so I am passionate about that. And interestingly enough, even though I've been a pelvic floor physio for 30 years, a lot of women, a lot of my patients, they say, how did you become a pelvic floor physio? Like, did you become one after you had your own kids? And no, I was doing it like, started 30 years ago. And the reason for that was I graduated from UBC in Vancouver, then moved to the US and worked as a physical therapist in the US for 3.5 years. So that's really where I developed my passion, because at that time, decades ago, the US was kind of well ahead of Canada of having great physical therapists focusing on that. So I initially started more from kind of a postural or sports perspective with the pelvic floor. And now I treat all sorts of pelvic floor issues for all genders. But today we are talking about postpartum. And I also think postpartum can be anytime after you've had a baby. It could be 6 weeks, right? 6 months. It could be 6 years. So postpartum to me, right, isn't like a designated time. It doesn't have to be that we're struggling, having intimacy issues at a certain time. Okay. And that's really important. And so today we kind of have some top questions we're going to go through, and I really want to do some myth busting, because there's a lot of myths about the pelvic floor and about sexual function. Okay. And I'll quickly kind of go over a little bit of anatomy just so we're all on the same page. Okay. And so our pelvis, and I have my pelvic model here. Hopefully people can see it. So obviously there's bones. And sorry, I have like a little bit of tape on my pelvis because it was falling apart, but that whole pink or red, I'm trying to get the right camera, that's our whole undercarriage. That's all muscle. And you can see there's different layers of pelvic floor muscle. So obviously for women that have been through childbirth, whether it's vaginal or even if you have a C-section birth, the pelvic floor has to support the baby and the growing baby for the whole gestation period, right? So if there are women in the audience or listening that have had a C-section, your pelvic floor can also undergo significant stretching and changes, mainly because like literally it was helping hold up baby for that whole gestation period, but also just your changing posture and the muscles holding the pelvis together stability wise. Okay. So think we've got bones, we've got muscle, that great. And there's different ligaments in our body. So there's different tissues, ligament, fascia, skin, bone, muscle, it all. So it's not just the pelvic floor that we're going to be talking about today. Even though I'm a pelvic physiotherapist, the pelvic floor works with a lot of different muscles. And that's super important because even in the yoga practice, right, we're not just only focusing on ever on one muscle, okay? And then number two, we have organs that go inside the pelvis, okay? So inside the pelvis, I've got 3 organs here that I'm going to show you guys. And this is important for not only intercourse, but things we're going to be talking about today as far as prolapse, actually, pelvic organ prolapse. So just so you guys know, these organs all stack together quite closely. So I'm just going to kind of do this just for purposes. I'm so bad with the camera. So the bladder is at the front near the pubic bone, right? And then this would be the vaginal canal. And then behind, I've got the rectum, okay? What's important about this is these organs are all tightly together, but they literally live like in the pelvis, okay? So today we're gonna also talk about different ways to optimize sexual function, like if someone has a diagnosis of organ prolapse, okay? So that's kind of an overview that it's not just the pelvic floor, okay? The pelvic floor muscles work kind of like a canister. So if you think diaphragm at the top of your rib cage, pelvic floor at the bottom, and at the front, we'd have our abs, okay? And at the back, our back muscles. So even in yoga, right? Hannah's always cueing you guys with your breath. So the diaphragm and the pelvic floor with every breath are synchronized to work together at a very subconscious level. So that even when you're sleeping, even when your children are sleeping, with every breath we take, when you inhale, the diaphragm and pelvic floor go down. And that's because when we inhale, the diaphragm has to pull the air in. So we inhale, pelvic floor, diaphragm descend. And as we exhale, they elevate. And that's because the diaphragm has to go up to get the air out. And I'll tell you, we'll talk about that more later, why that has an impact on sexual function, okay? But why it also has an impact for how the pelvic floor works with the core muscles, okay? So we've got core muscles, right? We've got the pelvic floor and organs inside. And the pelvic floor itself has so many functional roles, okay? So not that you guys have to remember all this, you can always watch the video again. But to summarize, I tell my patients pee, poo, sex, and support. If you think of those things, okay? So imagine the pelvic floor, we need it for urinary control, right? Fecal control for bowel movements, right? Sexual function, which is what we're talking about today. Support. So the pelvic floor is one of your most important core muscles. And then the other function it has that a lot of people don't know about is it kind of works like a sump pump. So when your pelvic floor and diaphragm move with every breath, they're kind of almost massaging your organs, which is pretty amazing, right? And also helps with lymphatic flow throughout your body. And we need that lymphatic fluid to flow through our body for immune health. It's kind of like our garbage system. Your lymphatic system is always taking out garbage, but it's also what helps fight like cancer cells and any pathogens in our body. So again, that's where yoga is so important, that when Hannah is cueing you to breathe and move mindfully, it can help so many things, right? Not only get you back your core strength, but also helping that lymphatic kind of system and your immunity. But we'll talk today about how it can help with sex. Okay, so number one, the first topic we're going to talk about is pain. Pain, and because we're talking about intercourse, we're going to talk about pain with intercourse, but pain could also be any type of pain that anyone is experiencing in the pelvis. Okay, so that could be pain in your spine, right? In your tailbone, pubic bone pain, also pain in your undercarriage, right? So with birth, that could be if you had a tear, right? An episiotomy. It could just be from stretching. Let's say if your baby's head was very large. So pain can be triggered for different reasons, right? And I always tell people pain doesn't equal damage. And that's really important because there's a lot of research into, some women can have excruciating pain and maybe there isn't too much that's actually damaging the body, and then someone else that has significant damage, the pain barely registers with them. And that can really have to do with our stress response. Okay, so even though we're talking about pain with intercourse today, what is super important is our brain is your most sexual organ. Okay, your brain is what tells your pelvic floor and the rest of your muscles what to do. Okay, so even though we're going to be talking about muscles today, it's super important. One of the main ways to decrease pain with intimacy is, number one, we need to make sure we're getting adequate sleep, which I know is so hard as a mom, but really advocating and trying to ask for support, because if your nervous system is stressed out because you haven't slept a decent amount in months because maybe your baby is colicky, or maybe your baby wants to feed all night long. Okay, so that's super important. If you're not getting enough sleep, your nervous system is like, I am in fight, flight, freeze mode. I do not care about sex at this moment. Okay, so sleep, super important. And just making sure you have nervous system support, and that could be adequate nutrition. Okay, so it's just kind of looking at your whole body holistically. Okay, if we just want to narrow down, how do we decrease pain with intercourse? So postpartum, number one is when we're breastfeeding, our estrogen levels go down significantly. And so your body breastfeeding is almost in a menopausal state. So for a lot of women, they will experience decreased lubrication, right? Or they might notice thinning or drying, or like more fragile labia and perineal tissues. And that can feel like itchy or dry or sensitive, or you just feel like your labia or clitoris rubbing on your underwear. And so what I say to women is, again, there can be different sources, right? And as physios, as a pelvic physio, I'm always trying to figure out what is the source of the pain, or what is amplifying the pain signal. Okay, so again, what I mean by that is someone could have a tear, or let's say have maybe a minor tear. Maybe it was only a tear that just tore a little bit of the skin. And again, two moms with the same tear, one could have excruciating pain where they can't even wear underwear. And another mom might be like, oh, I'm already riding my bicycle and I'm, 8 weeks postpartum. Okay. So again, every person is different. So I just really think that's important, that I don't want anyone to go, oh, I have to be this healed at this point in the journey. Okay. But ways that we could decrease pain. Number one, of course, I'm biased, like pelvic floor physiotherapy treatment. And Hannah and I were saying earlier that I personally feel optimally we should be having women at least see a pelvic floor physio once, like maybe when you're even thinking about getting pregnant, just to get an understanding and awareness of like, where are these muscles and what do they do, and helping your brain connect to these muscles, because we should be able to tell these muscles with our brain effortlessly to be able to contract and let go. Okay. So let's say if someone, maybe they didn't tear vaginally during their birth. And sorry, I'm having a hard time with my camera. I'm like just dyslexic with the camera. I have lots of patients where their undercarriage might be sore and they maybe didn't tear, but maybe they have hip pain, or maybe they had a job previous to having baby where they sat all day, like in an office. So if someone has tight hip or butt muscles, those muscles work with the pelvic floor. So if someone's kind of a bum clencher, or they don't stretch or move their body regularly, even before they had their baby, their undercarriage or their pelvic floor might have been like TMJ, tight, okay? So just tight pelvic floor muscles, just like jaw pain, right? Like right now, if all of you guys at home clench your jaw, right, and it creates tension. So, people that clench their jaw all night, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm getting migraines. Like, why do I have headaches? Or why do my teeth hurt? So constant tension anywhere in our body, or like neck tension, anywhere, including pelvic floor, can start to cause pain. So how we decrease pain is often doing yoga. Often I'll give clients stretches and releases. So the easiest way to relax the pelvic floor is actually by moving and relaxing the big muscle groups, inner thighs, butt muscles, hip rotators, but also breathing. Okay, because remember earlier, I said the pelvic floor and the diaphragm work together. The other way to decrease pain with intimacy is using, and we'll talk about this a little later with the ergonomics of sex, but using support pillows. Let's say if you're having sex missionary style, so it could be pillows under your knees or under your bum. So we'll talk about that a little later. So it could be using props, lube. That's the other thing. Now I tell women to use lube all the time, you know, even if they're a teenager. But if, of course, if your tissues are sensitive and dry, please use lube. A lot of my patients are like, oh, I don't want to use lube because then my partner thinks that he or she isn't pleasuring me. I'm like, that's just the biggest myth ever. Okay. Use lube, use a lot of it. There's different types of lube. My favorite lube that I tell women, I can always give Hannah the links. This is called Uber Lube. And what I love about Uber Lube is it's a silicone lube, super slippery, but it doesn't have any added chemicals, parabens, phthalates, any of that crap. It's optimized pH for the vaginal tissues. So there's also water-based lube, and there's great products like, I like Good Clean Love, that's organic. There's another brand called Sliquid. So those are good. But what I don't like about water-based lube, so if you're postpartum, even a year or 10 months postpartum, if your tissues are dry and fragile, dry tissue takes that water-based lube and goes, thank you very much, right? So if you're feeling like you have to keep reapplying lube during intimate time, it means it's not staying on the surface and being super slippery, okay? So a moisturizer is different than lube, okay? And that's just important because a moisturizer would be something that we put in at night to plump up the tissues, right? Like our face. Lube for sexual intercourse, you don't want it to soak in. You want it to stay on the surface and stay super slippery. Okay, so I can always ask questions later, but if women are like, oh, what would be a good moisturizer to use? Okay, because if women postpartum have low estrogen, they can use like a vaginal moisturizer every night to keep the tissues hydrated. That also speeds up healing of tears. But there's a lot of research now too into actually, it's totally appropriate. If someone, let's say if you're like even 6 weeks postpartum and you're like, wow, like I had some tearing here and it's just not healing well, or if it's dry, irritable, to definitely talk to your healthcare provider about getting prescribed low dose vaginal estrogen, applying it topically, internally, and like anywhere in your undercarriage. It does not go to the breast milk, does not go to your baby, but there's a lot of research now into, again, it's just like menopause. Your tissues can be like that. Because I have a lot of women, they're like, Corinne, I'm using buckets of lube, but my tissue is still so dry and fragile. Okay, so estrogen may be a thing, use lube. Okay, so that's probably, we can ask more questions about pain later. So number two, one of the questions we wanted to answer today is it, like it's normal for sex to feel different, right? But like, what should sex feel like? Okay, so what I tell women, number one, it's a myth that you should be wanting to have intimate time at that 6-week mark, right? Like how many of you in the audience have had a healthcare provider postpartum say, okay, you're 6 weeks, you're 8 weeks, good to go. Like you're cleared to have intercourse. And a lot of patients come to me and they are so scared and feeling vulnerable. And especially if they had birth trauma or if they've had a history of sexual trauma previously in their life. So I always, as a pelvic physiotherapist, before people come see me, I have them fill in a very extensive intake form because I really want to know, like, again, are they getting enough sleep? But what is their nervous system like? Is there a reason that these muscles are protecting? Okay, so muscles can be tight for different reasons, right? If someone who has had a history of trauma and they don't feel safe, well, of course, their muscles are going to tighten, okay? And just trying to stretch them is not going to make them soften, okay? So number one, there's no magic time that you have to go back to intimate time. It's totally up to you, okay? And number two, you definitely have to feel safe in your body and safe with partner and full consent and everything, right? But again, muscles can be tight for very different reasons. They could be tight because maybe in my job, I'm an accountant. And before having a baby, I worked 14 hours a day at a desk and I didn't have time to move my body. Okay. So muscles could be tight because of postural habits, because of previous sports. So I have lots of patients, if they had a history of horseback riding, ballet, things like that, they might have a habit of holding. But again, they also might be holding because they're having a trauma response or a protective response. So I always have patients, I refer a lot of patients to counseling. Okay. So that's just important. So in saying that, I think intimate time, we should not even be using the word sex. We should be saying, oh, I want to experience like an erotic or sensual experience in my body. That could be solo sex. So what I always recommend to women is, before having all this pressure with a new body, after having a baby, this has changed, right? And so taking time to get connected to this, whether that's you taking time with a mirror to look and see how the body's changed, or taking time in the bathtub or the shower, or a time where you just have time to yourself to breathe and explore and touch sensually in a pleasurable way. Okay, so the reason that I'm passionate about what I do is pleasure should be is what we're aiming for. Where the goal is not orgasm. The goal is not penis in vagina. Okay. Although in our culture, everyone thinks sex is penis and vagina. So sex does not have to include penetration. So I think that's super important in the postpartum period. Whatever stage you're at, take penetration off the table, especially the first few times you're exploring that with yourself or with your partner. Okay. So definitely you can experience lots of pleasure on the outside. Okay. So pleasure is the measure. Emily Nagoski, she's an excellent author, wrote a book called Come As You Are. She has some other good books. So she's a great resource. She said, if it's not pleasurable for you, the body is going to shut down the sexual response. Okay. And what I mean by that is, if you were being chased by a grizzly bear in the forest, okay, if you're in fight, flight, freeze, and you are running for your life, what do you think happens to the pelvic floor muscles? Do you think they relax and go into kind of a receiving mode? No, they clench. And even an animal, if it's being chased by a grizzly bear, it'll tuck its tail and run, right? So the pelvic floor is the muscle group that allows an animal to even wag its tail when it's happy and feeling safe. Same muscle group that when it's tight, tuck the tail and get out of there, right? And we have a tailbone, like right there. So when we tighten our pelvic floor, all our sphincters tighten. Anal sphincter, vaginal urethra, the sexual, you're right, your vagina, the opening for sexual function. So the most important thing for sex, to have pleasure, but also to not have pain, is you cannot be in fight, flight, freeze. Okay, so that's where yoga comes in, right? Is anything where there's breath, calming the nervous system and being in your body. So earlier, Hannah said, well, what are some tips we could do to optimize our intimate experience with ourselves and with our partner? And moms are busy. So what I say is that you need to be actually training the pleasure pathway in your brain. Okay. And that can be all day long. So I tell women, when you wake up in the morning, before you even get out of bed, just take a couple deep breaths and even like notice your head on the pillow and notice your body in your bed, and find at least one thing to find pleasurable. And it might just be like, oh, I like the weight of this blanket on my body. Or I love the smell of my partner's hair that's laying beside me. Or if you co-sleep, like I love smelling my baby or hearing my baby breathe beside me. And then when you get up and you go into the kitchen and maybe grab a coffee or a tea, taking a moment just to smell the coffee. So it's important to have pleasurable intercourse that's not painful, but also pleasurable, is we need to be using all our senses. Okay. So throughout the day, if you're out for a walk with your baby, you know, even doing a little bit of a walking meditation, what are 5 things I can see? Right? Like looking at the trees, looking at the leaves. Oh, I saw a baby bird in the tree. What are 4 things I can smell? Like smelling the fresh spring air. What are 3 things I can feel on my skin? Like, can I feel a breeze on the skin, right? Or what are 2 things I can hear? Can I hear my feet on the gravel as I'm walking? So little things like that all day long in the shower, taking a time to like, as you're soaping yourself up in the shower, like, oh, what does that soap feel like? Is it slippery? What does it smell like? Like, just take it, like your shower doesn't have to take any longer, but you're drawing awareness and mindfulness to your body. Because what does not work as moms is we're just giving her through the day, checking off tasks, right? Get the baby out of, get the baby ready, breastfeed the baby, clean the kitchen, oh, pick up the toddler, oh, get the other kids from school. And all day long, if you're in that check stuff off the list, conscious thinking brain, and then by evening time, your partner's like, hey, like baby's asleep. Do you guys, should we get some intimate time? Your brain, especially as females, we cannot switch like that from go, 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 being the caregiver, right? To then all of a sudden being in a receptive rest and digest mode. Okay, so that's just super important just to like survive being a mom and not and have some sanity. But intimate time, it is not just about the pelvic floor muscles or the physical body, okay? Because again, your brain is constantly telling these muscles what to do, okay? So again, could be little sticky notes on your mirror in your bathroom, right? Like to take a breath and to be in your body, and in Hannah's yoga classes.
So, Corinne, I love that you said that I think everyone's here just nodding because I swear the moment we become mothers, this blueprint becomes alive in our brain. And it's just like you feel this a tremendous responsibility that I don't think our partners feel as much as we do.
No, they don't.
They
Trust
don't.
me.
It's like, and then we're going all day long, and then suddenly it's like now I have to be this minx in the sack. Like, no, I am not even thinking about that. And like you
No,
said, I love that you said today, sex begins in the brain for, and that is so true. Our brain is not in it. And I
no,
talk to so many women, even like 8 months postpartum, 9 months, she's like, Hannah, does it ever come back? Like, I am just not thinking about that. And here my
no.
like, wow, your breasts look great. Like you're a double whatever now. And she's like, no. And so it's like, well, I love that you said that the present, and that's going to really work with this yoga class today. Our mantra is I am present in my body.
Oh, I love it.
It just
Yeah.
all goes together because we become so concerned about getting everything done and then the future and will this benefit my baby down the line. And yeah, so I just wanted to also interrupt you because we have a question. It said you mentioned starting with pleasure from the outside.
Yes.
How does that differ if your tear included a labial or urethra or other frontal tissue
Good
tears?
question. Good question. So let's say if I always think go to the big muscle groups first. And what I mean by that is you guys have probably heard the term what wires together fires together. So remember how I said the pelvic floor is not an entity by itself, that the diaphragm works with it, and our abdominal muscles, but also other arousal areas. So when I say start on the outside, if I had a client who was, I can never aim this the right way. If I had a client that had experienced pain anywhere in the undercarriage, so a tear or they just don't like how it looks, right? Like I have lots of women, they're like, they may not have tore, but it actually, when they go to touch, it hurts because maybe they were taught as a child or in their family or in their religion or their culture that that's a dirty, naughty, like not a good place of your body, right? So definitely we can have a pain response in tissue that hasn't been damaged in the north in our way of thinking, ripped or torn. It can hurt just because we again are protecting because someone told me that's a spot that I shouldn't even look at. So I've had patients where they've never actually touched their vulva or skin, that maybe they were raised in a culture that you only wash yourself with your hand over a washcloth. So the washcloth touches your vulva or clitoris, but that person has never felt safe in their body to lay their own hand on their own tissue. So when I say start on the outside, it totally depends, right? What your comfort level is and where you feel safe. So for a lot of my patients, that might be starting on their feet, right? Like just taking time to just put some nice music on, and either you yourself massaging some lotion into your feet or into your legs or inner thighs, right? So I always tell people, don't go right to your vajayjay, right? Like, maybe it's rubbing other central areas, right? So like our breasts or our ears, right? Like, like if you think of the areas on a cat or a dog where they're just like, they like you to just run their hands down their spine. Same with our children, right? Like if you're trying to get your baby to sleep, what do you guys do, right? You're gently massaging their spine, right? Or caressing their face, and it's slow, gentle, right? So again, there's many different ways of touch. And again, I could go into a whole discussion about the different types of touch. So touch can be soothing, right? Like maybe your child cut themselves and you're like, it's okay, sweetie, you cut yourself, right? Soothing could be nurturing. Soothing could be, touch could be arousing, right? If you're trying to like wake someone up, right? Or touch could be compressive, right? So sometimes, when you go for a massage, you're like, oh, I just want them to kind of like squeeze. So if you're pleasuring yourself from the outside, I would say start further away, feet, buttocks, breast, or even just having your partner like massage your neck, right? So I tell women, like, at first, build up that sensual pleasure by maybe saying no, like no touchy on the genitals and none on the boobs, because I've already breastfed a child all day. And so I think it's connecting with your partner, not in the bedroom. So I tell women over coffee or on a walk, saying to your partner, what do you find arousing or sensual? What feels good for you in touch, right? Is it soaking in the bathtub, or is it having a nice massage? And I think that's super important to create intimacy first, where you don't even take your pants off. Okay. So again, that could be with partner, but if you're by yourself, again, start in the shower, or rubbing lotion into your back, your bum, your breast, wherever you find arousing, or a scalp massage, right? Like I remember when I was a single mom with a toddler and an infant, and I was sleep deprived, and I would just like ask my hairdresser to like just like massage my scalp, or just like like just pull, like when you go for like a massage and sometimes they just pull your hair. So what is essential for different people is totally unique, right? So you have to figure out, when was a time in my life that I was like, oh, that massage felt so good, or that sex felt so good, and figure out what was the environment. Was it because there was amazing music on, or you were in the forest, or there was rain outside, right? So again, go back to the five senses, because it's no good in a rush to be like, well, Corinne said I should rub lotion into my arm. It's not the same. It's the speed that we do it, and it's the intention, and it's the thought, and the mindset, which again is in yoga. What is my mindset for the class? And what's my mindset as I breathe? Like, where is my headspace, right? And again, as busy moms, you might be like, I have no freaking idea where my headspace is because I'm so tired. But you need to maybe, again, try to think back to a vivid time or memory where you were embodied. And if you can't, then that's where erotica. So pick up a good, we all have our go-to fantasies, right? And if you don't, figure out what your fantasies are. And I say that to women again, pleasure starts in the brain. And as women, we're not told it's okay to be thinking, like, as you're driving your kids to school, like having some like fantasies about, ooh, like the fireman coming breaking down my door, or I don't know, being the goddess mistress that's swept up by the guy in the white stallion in his knight in shining armor, whatever it is. But it's as you're having a shower and as you're maybe going to sleep at night, cultivating doesn't have to be sexual thoughts, but erotic, sensual in your body with breath, because then you will have practiced again, that touch, so that when your partner touches you, you can go, oh, right, that's kind of what it felt like when I had that massage, right? The other thing that Emily Nagoski always talks about is creating just like we do with children, right? You don't take a toddler who's playing with their toys and is totally into what they're doing and going, okay, we have to go to school or we have to go to whatever. They'll go, oh, no, I don't want to stop this task. You didn't warn me or give me a break between the tasks, so now I can switch into a different mode. So same with us. If you're in mommy mode and you just cleaned the kitchen and had to do all these tasks, and then your partner's like, hey, do you want to get it on at this time? You're like, no, I need 10 or 15 minutes where, tell your partner they've got to sweep the kitchen or something. And you're like, I need 15 minutes where I need to switch from mommy to goddess. Okay. And that could be just having some time to do some yoga stretches like cat cow or child's pose, or having a shower or a quick bath. Or we'll talk about toys in a minute too, but maybe doing some self-pleasure with a vibrator or something and getting some blood flow to those tissues before you even see your partner in the bedroom. Okay, so it's kind of just like before you run a marathon or something or go to the gym, you don't just kind of go walk into the gym and then start lifting heavy weights. You kind of do a little warm up. Okay, so that warm up is, what is my mindset? Because a lot of women, they're like, oh, I'm trying to have sex with my partner and I look up at the ceiling and all I see is cobwebs and I see baskets of laundry that haven't been folded. So in a lot of the research they talk about, you guys might have heard of, what are my brakes and what are my accelerators? And again, Emily Nagoski has excellent resources on this. She even has free worksheets. So if you Google Emily Nagoski, and what these worksheets are is really sitting down, even by yourself with a cup of coffee and taking a piece of paper. What are the things? So breaks would be things that shut down the sexual response. Okay. So breaks would be, okay, I have not slept in a month, right? Or my hair smells like baby puke and breast milk. Or I haven't had a shower in 5 days. Those would all be breaks. Of course, we're not going to feel aroused. So anything that you can think of that goes, that does not make me feel sexy. It could be like, I worked all day, or I'm whatever it is, right? But also then taking a piece of paper and writing down, what are the accelerators? So accelerators are things that actually turn on the sexual response, right? So it could be like, oh, when I'm on holiday, or we paid for a babysitter and, oh my God, my partner and I actually got some time to have dinner and connect. And then we went dancing and then I felt like I was in the mood. So in our culture, I think there's too much focus on how do we increase the accelerators. So accelerators would also be what I'm going to talk about in a sec, is like sex toys or wearing lingerie, or, hey, spice it up with, I don't know, wearing handcuffs to bed or whatever, right? And I'm not saying anything those are bad, but most women that are so tired and sleep deprived and just barely hanging on, aka you guys, that sometimes doesn't give them the pleasure. They're like, look, I've tried every vibrator, I have tried dressing up, I've tried, but I just can't get there. I can't feel like I'm in my body. So what's more important is to focus on, how do I turn off the offs, right? Instead of only turning on the ons. So turning off the offs would be maybe saying, honey, if you want to have intimate time, we have to carve out time at this day, at this time of the week, when we know that maybe we've done some food prep and someone can watch the kids or something like that. And I know women and men and of all genders say, oh, but I don't want to have to plan time for intimacy with my partner. But sometimes in this phase of our lives, we do kind of have to, because it's kind of like the gym. If you don't plan it somewhere for it to somehow happen in your week, it just won't happen, because like Hannah said, as moms, otherwise you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're, I don't know, that decision fatigue where it's up to you to make all the decisions, who's going to organize the birthday party and the whatever. So that's super important, where if prioritizing pleasure and connection with partner is the goal, it's, again, not penis and vagina sex, because they do say in the research of long-term committed partnerships that are enjoying a beautiful, intimate relationship, and kind of why do we even want sex in the first place? It's connection, it's intimacy, it's going deeper with that person that you want to be with, or with yourself if it's solo sex, right? So I think that is important to somehow take a bit of time and go, okay, why do we even want to be having intimate time in the first place anyway, right? Because we all have sex for different reasons, right? For some people, they're like, oh, if I at least have an orgasm, I can go to sleep. Or when I have it, I feel less stressed. Or when I have it, it makes me feel in my body and alive and like I have vitality, right? And I think those are good reasons, but we don't want to be doing it out of obligation. So those are a lot of breaks for women. That would put on the brakes like, oh, we haven't had intimate time in a while. I better do it to keep that partner happy, or faking the orgasm. I've done that like probably for decades in my life, my 20s and 30s. Like I would just be like, oh my God, I'd rather go to sleep. I'm just going to fake it. So I just want to go to bed. But that's not good. It's not healthy, because then the partner you're with thinks they did a great job, right? Like if every time you fake orgasm, it's when that partner did whatever, they're just going to keep doing that thing because they think you love it. Kind of, right?
I am of loving this, but we have to
I'm going over time.
Well, we have to get into a little bit about the prolapse.
Yes. Okay.
Just in case, I don't know if anyone here has been diagnosed or wants to know more about prolapse, just a bit about prolapse and then the sex toys, because
yes,
I am a person who like didn't realize and discover sex toys till later in life, and it was the best thing ever.
yes.
Love to hear about that, but let's get into the prolapse and then
Okay.
we can questions. So
okay. So prolapse essentially is when the organs are no longer sitting where they were before. And there's a lot of fear mongering with prolapse. And just to let you guys know, in the research, at least 50%, so at least half of you and probably more have prolapse. And a lot of you might even know, you might not even know you have it. So that's number one. If you get the diagnosis, please do not freak out. Number two, it is totally normal, especially if, so the women in this group today, if you're 6 or 8 weeks postpartum, there's no way your organs are going to be sitting where they were when you were like 16 years old. Okay. So essentially organ prolapse means when either the uterus, bladder, the rectum, could be the urethra, so any organs inside the pelvis. And it can be from pushing baby out, but I have lots of women that have never had a baby and they have prolapse. So it's really any repeated motion of bearing down. So years of constipation, a job where you're heavy lifting. There are 4 degrees of prolapse, so not that I have to go into it too much, but a stage 1, very minor, nothing to worry about. Stage 2, it's still pretty minor. Stage 3 would be at the opening of the vagina if you can see tissue. So let's say if you were to look at the opening of your vagina, tissue that's at the opening but that's not going through. Stage 4 is when it exits. So I had a stage 4 rectocele after my first child. And I was still able to exercise and have sex, all the things. Unfortunately, I also had an anal sphincter tear, so I was fecally incontinent. Okay. The reason I say that is that you can still do lots of things even if you have a stage 4. Okay. In the research, it's more to do with the degree of bother or symptoms you have. So you can have a stage 3, okay, and not even know it, because you might not have symptoms of heaviness or pressure. And that's usually how women know they have it. They'll say, oh, I feel heavy. I feel pressure. I can see something at the opening. So what do we do with sex for prolapse? Number 1, any positions where you can be head down, bum up a little bit. Okay, because now gravity is helping take the organs down. So that could be like child's pose with your butt up in the air and some pillows under your abdomen. Okay, or that could be like supported bridge. So actually a lot of the yoga positions that Hannah, does in her class, supported bridge, because again, if you've got pillows under your bum, your head is down, your bum's more up. Okay. It is not damaging to your organs. So if you have any degree of prolapse, and let's say you're having penis and vagina sex, it is not damaging to the tissue for the penis or the toy or the finger to touch the tissue. Okay. But a lot of women with uterine prolapse, if the uterus is hanging a bit low and partner has a penis and is doing that, the cervix can feel like it's getting hit, and that can be very painful. So definitely different positions, side lying with pillow between your knees, taking away gravity, but again, just dealing with prolapse in general. So let's say if all day, if you're holding your breath when you lift your baby, or if you're not dealing with constipation and you are like straining every time you have a poo, then during intimate time, prolapse is going to be more significant. So as far as prolapse for intercourse, in my physio opinion, it's more like dealing with the prolapse in general and seeing a pelvic physio. We can help teach those muscles to support, but a lot of it is preventing downward pressure. So it's how you lift your baby, right? Are you spending all day on your feet and not taking a break? Okay, so that's kind of the prolapse piece. And then sexual toys, there are like so many. Okay, so I don't want women thinking they have to go spend a ridiculous amount of money. Okay, but I'll just kind of give you a snapshot of some of the different toys. So the reason toys can be helpful is because the clitoris, so this is a laser 3D printed clitoris. Okay, the reason this is important is the clitoris has the exact same embryological tissue as the penis. So in the same way that a penis gets erect, that erectile tissue, same tissue in the clitoris, okay? And there's twice as many nerve endings in the clit as there is in the penis. Okay, lots of nerve endings, but what most women think, and a lot of men, that little yellow dot that little yellow dot there, okay, that's all we see of the clitoris, but your clitoris actually, this is like the opening to the vagina, and this is all erectile tissue that sits deep underneath your labia. So guess what? Toys that can help increase sensation to that area, because you know how I find a lot of guys, they go straight to the tip of your clit and they're rubbing it and they're doing this and you're like, please stop. Like sometimes that is really sensitive and is not pleasurable. Okay. So when I talk about the clitoris, it's more about increasing blood flow, making it erect, right? Because imagine a man with a flaccid penis, like he's not having very much fun, right? What creates more sensation for a guy is as they get blood flow and they get erect, they get way more sensation. We do too. So for toys, there's all sorts of vibrators, right? So this is like a little vibrator. Okay, so I say to women, again, it does not mean you have to go right to the tip of the clit, right? It could be any sort of like touching, using a vibrator, even on your inner thighs, right? So again, you don't have to go straight to the clitoris. It could be working in bigger areas. So let's say something like this. I think everyone's seen the Hitachi. So this is like a big, I gotta go back this far. So the Hitachi is one of the, I think since the 50s, I think. So women back in the 50s, they'd be like, oh, it's for my neck, but really it was a vibrator, okay. Big head, more surface area. So if I have patients that don't have a lot of arousal or sensation in their clitoris, sometimes you need more surface area, more vibration. Okay, and so that could be using it inner thigh, but then going to the vulva, labia, clitoris. Okay, if you're someone who goes, no, my clit is quite sensitive, then maybe using something smaller, right? Or there are lots of toys. This is called the womanizer. And Lilo makes one too. So this, I'm just showing you guys this. This is more what we call, like I call it a sonic boom kind of toy. So this creates suction, and more like literally when you have this on your clit, it mimics someone licking or touching your clit. And it kind of has like a little bit of suction. So it kind of feels like, but you know, when you stand in front of a big speaker at a concert and it goes, woo, 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 that is kind of what this feels like. So I have a lot of women where they say, I've tried lots of vibrators. It doesn't do it for me. Then I'm like, oh, try like the womanizer or try something like that where it's a different sensation. Because our brain, again, our brain needs novel, different, unique, mix it up, right? You can't use the same. It's kind of like with sex, right? If you do it the same all the time or you have the same meal all the time, it's just boring. Okay. So sometimes that's where it takes a bit of exploration to find the right toy. This is a company. So let's say if you said, oh, actually, I had an episiotomy, my scar is sensitive. I just like, I can't do penetration. But I want to, and I'm kind of afraid to touch close to the opening. So I can send Hannah the link, but this is a toy from Mystery Vibe. And it's a really smart, like you can sit on this. So it actually goes right over the vulva. So you can put, sorry, I'm so bad with the video. So it kind of goes like that. Again, I'm not doing this very well, but it goes around the opening. Okay. So this still can give very good vibration. If someone didn't have pain down there or anything, it gives the partner some stimulation too. So like this whole thing vibrates. So again, there's different ones of all shapes and sizes. Again, talking about toys, you could think of this as a toy, but this is, so let's say if someone says, oh, I'm just starting to have penetration with partner, but I'm really afraid because maybe my partner is more well endowed, or I'm only okay with maybe just like partner inserting just a little bit of a toy or a little bit of a penis. This is called the O-nut. So this is a device. It's like stackable rings that the partner puts it over their penis. So what it does is, let's see if I did that. So let's say if partner with a penis is wearing this, now the amount of penetration is controlled, right? So during intimate time, you might start out with just a little bit. And then as your body relaxes and you're like, oh, okay, that's actually not too bad. My body's getting more aroused. I'm okay with this. Oh, okay, maybe I take another ring off and maybe that's as far as I go. But then over time, maybe I go to one ring. So the O-nut is a really good for, let's say if I have patients that maybe they have a history of endometriosis or vulvodynia, and those are conditions where the muscles, even before pregnancy, so I treat lots of women where they were having significant pain with intercourse before ever even having a baby. So sometimes those patients need something like this that's a buffer. Okay, so again, sometimes it's decreasing the amount of sensation that's happening, and sometimes it's increasing it. But I always tell women, use it on your own at first, figure out what feels good for you, right? So that you can communicate with partner, right? But like Hannah said, like I tell my 19-year-old daughter, like this is where I think we need to be teaching our teenagers, or when it's appropriate, right? That all of sex is consensual, it's in a safe space, but it has to be pleasure-based. So like I've had that conversation with my daughter. I'm like, here is lube for you. Here are some different vibrators that you can explore, and that it's appropriate when it's consensual and it's in a safe space, that it is not, oh, this is naughty and dirty. Okay. Because Hannah and I were saying too, that in the research, they say it starts as soon as, like right now, when you guys are with your babies. So let's say every time you do a baby diaper change, babies are picking up on communication all the time from us, right? So let's say you're changing your baby's diaper and baby had a big poo and you go, oh my God, like, oh, right? And you're like, oh, that's disgusting. And then you're like, oh. So subconsciously, like your baby's picking up on those cues, like, oh, there must be, this is bad, or this is like a not a good thing, kind of, or when they're a toddler. So in the research, they say like, you know, as you're taking the baby's diaper off, it's like, oh, you had a poo, right? We're just going to wipe that up and da, da, da. Same when you're like toilet training your toddler. So I think we really need to be careful of like our body language and what we're saying to children or teenagers or anyone of any age, because they're picking up on those subconscious cues, right? So I'm not sure if anyone has questions about that, but I think it is important throughout the lifespan, right? That we kind of are conscious of that. Oh, I don't know if I can hear you.
Sorry, I this has been so amazing. I feel like we could listen to
Sorry,
you
I'm
for
overtime.
hours. No, it's fine. I'll do a short class, but I when I post this video for all you watching this recording, I'm gonna put links under this video of the products she's mentioning, because
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are gonna might even not even have the email that I'm sending out. So I'm going to stop the recording now, and we're gonna get to this group's questions so you guys can, unmute yourself. You can ask her direct questions. So thank you for everyone who watched this far. You were absolutely amazing.